For today's Grimm adventure, we're doing something I've been wanting to do for quite some time. But sadly, ever since we moved here to California, the Hollywood Bowl has been closed to the public because of the pandemic. But if you didn't know this historic concert venue, unless they are preparing for an actual concert or an actual event, you can explore the legendary Hollywood Bowl. And that's what we're doing today. All around Hollywood, pretty much everywhere you look, there are signs that say that Hollywood Bowl is celebrating 100 years. And this is one of the most popular concert venues in the world. There has been countless magical and legendary performances on the stage, but today we're going to be talking about The Doors live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
Now, of course, I've been wanting to come out here to see a show, which we still haven't done yet. But the fact that you can actually explore, go on an adventure and just walk this history, which is what we love to do here, is pretty amazing. Now, what brings us here today is, like I said, The Doors live at the Hollywood Bowl. They performed here. We're going to talk about that and some stories behind it. We're going to line up some photos, as well as a photo shoot that was taken here on property known as the levitation photos, where Jim Morrison levitated Pam, his then girlfriend, and another girl. For this story, we have to go back to July 5th, 1968. The Doors were asked to play the Hollywood Bowl, this prestigious concert venue, this legendary concert venue, which was a very big deal for them because, after all, the Doors really started off as a bunch of hippie kids from Venice who have earned their dues, and at this point, they're playing in their hometown here in Los Angeles.
And finally, the Hollywood Bowl called in 1968. In 1968, they said, we'd like you to play the Hollywood Bowl. And we said, well, by God, let's check our schedule. Yes, I think we can make the Hollywood Bowl.
I'll try to picture this. Hours before the Doors were to perform here at the Hollywood Bowl, they were down on Sunset Boulevard having dinner with Mick Jagger at a Chinese food restaurant. Getting close to the time they were supposed to be here, they hopped in the car and they drove right up this road and they turned into the Hollywood Bowl right over here, right past the sign that says Lot B and that Hollywood sign. And they would have drove right up this road right here to the back of the Hollywood Bowl. Now, you ready for it? On the way here, the band didn't know this, but Jim Morrison took acid.
This particular night, we had dinner with Mick Jagger.
Mick was there.
Mick was there.
We had ate dinner with him and some of the other guys earlier that night. And at Mu Ling's, remember?
Right. Chinese food.
Place, great place.
Yeah.
Hollywood Boulevard, or Sunset Boulevard.
And then the ritual always is started by me because no one else would do it. What are we playing tonight, guys? Okay. And no one is very, I can get the first few tunes out of everybody, and I can't get further. This is how it always was. The Bowl, I got them to plan out pretty good. I remember Mick Jagger looking over at me, trying to corral them into a set list. He was probably shaking his head.
Well, it was kind of like get him to the Greek, We were at Mu Ling's and we said, hey, man, it's getting late. We better get over there, And Jim is having a few drinks, Mick Jagger's there, and we were late.
I remember driving up to the Bowl after dinner with the Stones, or some of the Stones, and getting right behind the shell and seeing 18,000 people and going, Jesus, wow, I hope we're good. It was intimidating, definitely intimidating. That's why maybe Jim took acid. Oh my God.
So there is a rumor that Jim was on acid. We don't know. I don't know that for a fact one way or the other.
He didn't tell the band he was doing this. And so that he managed to perform at all. That he hit everything on cue. Things were drawn out more than usual.
You can kind of tell at first that he's kind of self-conscious, you know, how you get on acid on the first part of the trip, you know. But then I think he kind of loosened up as time went on.
So in the beginning, he's kind of, you know, he's all right. And then he starts to, you can see him kind of, and then by the middle, my God, oh, there's a moth on the floor. And, you know, he's just tripping out on little finite stuff.
Now, I've never in my life taken acid, so I don't know what it feels like or how long it takes to kick in. But can you imagine turning the corner and coming out on stage and seeing 18,000 people out there staring at you, waiting for you to perform? I can't even imagine it. It blows my mind. Like I said, this was a very big deal for the Doors. A group of hippie kids from Venice actually getting to play the Hollywood Bowl, this prestigious, legendary concert venue. And they wanted to document it.
Hey, Mr. Lightman, you gotta turn those lights way down, man.
They had made the decision to film this show. They made the decision. This had nothing to do with Elektra Records. It had nothing to do with Paul Rothschild. They decided they wanted to do it, and they wanted to record it. This was a venture that they personally paid for.
Well, I mean, it's the Hollywood Bowl. Maybe we should shoot this thing. But, of course, when you shoot, you need good lighting. And that's why Jim is going, turn the lights down. But he's on acid. He's not thinking that we're shooting this thing. And he can't get him to turn the lights down. He forgot.
Oh, what are we doing?
Now we're gonna head over to the Hollywood Bowl in just a moment. We can't really get into it right now. I mean, we could. But it's 8 o'clock in the morning and there are a bunch of people in there running the stairs and they're blasting loud music. But that's okay, because something else I want to talk about is almost directly across from the Hollywood Bowl. This little picnic area. Well, to be fair, back in the day, back in 1968, this picnic area probably didn't even look like this. But of course, a lot has definitely changed. The landscape has changed. But there are some pretty famous photos called the levitation photos that were taken of Jim Morrison and Pam and a model right over here in this area. Now here's the story of the levitation photos as I know it. There's really not that much information online, but from what I can tell, they were taken here at the Hollywood Bowl, somewhere along the outskirts of it. Again, the landscape has changed. Now, sometime in the late 1960s, there was a woman's magazine, Ladies' Home Journal, I think it was, where they did an interview with Jim, and Jim said that he had a way of talking with the ladies that made them levitate. Now, this piqued the interest of a photographer by the name of Frank Bez, and Frank reached out to Jim Morrison and said, hey, I want to do photos where you're actually levitating a girl. And at first, Jim was very hesitant about it, but Frank Bez was very adamant about getting it done. So he reached out to the Magic Castle here in Hollywood and said, hey, how do you do this levitation trick? And they put him in touch with somebody who put him in touch with somebody. It kind of goes on, magicians, right? And it came back, the magician said, hey, I'll tell you how to do it, but if you tell anybody else, I'll kill you. Well, over the years, he did tell people how he did it, and that magician never killed him. So they came out here. Pamela was with them, there was a model, and Jim, and I'm guessing, based off just walking around, with this as a backdrop, there's a whole bunch of trees and these yellow flowers, like little hippie flowers popping up. They built this rig, and Frank Bez took these amazing levitation photos where it appears that Jim Morrison is levitating a girl. And they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And because Pam was here, they levitated her as well. I love lining up photos, but something like this with trees as a background, it's darn near impossible. But I walked all around this property. I talked to security. I even talked to people who've been working here for many, many years, and some of them had no idea that this was even taken here, that these photos were taken here on property. But as far as I can tell, right here is where those photos were taken. In an interview I did read with photographer Frank Bez, he mentions that Pamela, her in the photos weren't really planned, that they actually built this apparatus for the model. But while they were here, Pamela said she wanted to do it, so they put her on there, and it didn't really work that well. But she was able to balance herself just right to get photos. That's why you see two girls. If you never noticed that, there are two girls in these different photos. Well, it looks like they're finishing up their exercises over at the Hollywood Bowl. So let's head on over there and take a look at this historic place and line up some photos from the doors live at the Hollywood Bowl. This is gonna blow your mind.
Wake up! You can't remember where it was. Had this dream stopped?
Decided to enter the bowl, well, the seating for the bowl, up a level from the main floor seats, just so you can kind of get the scope of everything. And then the reveal of the bowl itself. And look at this. This is truly something else. Well, look at that. And we're not all the way up to the very top, but I think this is just perfect. Get a good view of the mountains behind it. This is really blowing my mind. I don't know how well known this is or if it's common knowledge. Maybe if you're here in LA, if you grew up here, but for anybody else in the world, they basically chose this location for the Hollywood Bowl because of this natural bowl-like geography area, whatever you want to call it, that at one point somebody came up here and there was this natural way about the hills that just made everything sound better. So they put the bowl right there facing this way up against the mountainside. And something else that's really cool I'm going to show you in just a little bit. In front of the stage there's seating now, but at one point there used to be a pool of water which kind of helped with the sound.
We were going to blast the sound all the way down the hills down to Hollywood Boulevard.
To the beach.
We want them to know on Hollywood Boulevard that the Doors are playing Light My Fire at the Hollywood Bowl.
To give you a little bit more perspective on how massive this place is, where I believe the levitation shots were taken is right behind the bowl itself, across a little parking lot, right about there. Now let's try to line up some more shots of Jim Morrison back in 1968. I'm sure the seating here at the Hollywood Bowl has been updated and changed over the years, but it looks like the number system is still relatively the same. Now I want to draw your attention to a couple different numbers on the wood: the 15, the 17, the 19, and the 21. It's right over here in this section where, in a photo, Jim Morrison can be seen sitting right here. Moving over just a little bit, you see in the center of your screen the number 13 and the number 15 on the wood, and you can see how it goes straight up the hillside there in like a straight line. There's another picture of Jim walking along the top of the benches here, kind of like a balancing act. If it weren't for these numbers, the way that they have the benches numbered, would not been able to find where these photos were taken, but you can see the numbers clear as day. All right, let's get closer to the stage. I'm sorry, I just can't get over how truly mind-blowing this is. Man, it's gorgeous. One of the most famous photos taken of Jim Morrison that day, July 5th, 1968, was where he was standing right on this little wall with the seating behind him. Of course, it was during the day before the concert even took place. But it was right here. I mean, everything pretty much matches up. Now, earlier in this video, I mentioned that at one point, right here in front of the stage, right where all these seats are, it used to be a body of water. They believed it helped with the sound. But when the Doors performed here, and I'm sure many other concerts, when the Doors performed here, they put down this green cardboard that they were performing on, and the band was really nervous because they had all that electrical equipment above the water, and they feared that At some point with Jim's antics, him dancing around and falling on the floor, that would break and they would ruin everything.
When we played there, there still was the big reflection pool in front of the shell. And so they covered that and put a green fake lawn on there. So really we were in front of the shell, and we knew water was beneath us, which was kind of unnerving with all that electronic equipment.
Now, a lot has changed over the years, especially right here in front of the stage. Now, you see that little mark on the wall right there? It's got that metal cover. At one point, I think that they were lights or maybe some sort of drain plugs because of the water that was in there. In the photo of Jim on the stage, dancing right on that little wall, that picture, you can actually see it on the inside. And today, the renovations, it's completely covered over. But you can still see him on the outside of the wall, right here, leading out this way to where everybody would be sitting watching the shows. And now for my favorite piece of Doors trivia, if you will, and it happened here on this stage. Jim is starting to really get into his supposed acid trip, and he goes out on this rampage, or this story about this grasshopper.
Ode to a grasshopper. I think I'll open a little shop, a little place where they sell things, and I think I'll call it Grasshopper. I'll have a big green grasshopper out there. You see my grasshopper, Mama? Looking real good.
And at one point in the actual concert, you can see this on video, he looks down at the stage because he sees a grasshopper and he bends down and he gets up real quick and he turns to the crowd and he gets a smile on his face and he says, "Oh, it was just a moth."
Uh-oh, I blew it, it's a moth.
The really cool thing about this, as this is happening, in the video, you can see a moth fly away right next to Jim. It's magical, right? Just imagine it. July 5th, 1968, a summer night here in LA, and the Doors standing right here, playing to 18,000 people. And today, I'm walking around the stage and it's quiet. Well, I mean, they're doing some construction, preparing for the next show that's going to be playing here. I don't know who it is. I still have to come here and see a show at some point. But just imagine all the people that have played here. It blows my mind. Now, sadly, we can't get on stage, which is understandable. There's all kinds of equipment up there. But if there was no equipment, we might be able to get on there, maybe at a different time. I guarantee you we will be back. You know the stories about how some historic concert venues have a certain area or like a green room where performers have signed, performers that have performed there? I asked the event staff, the security, if here at the Hollywood Bowl, if they have something like that. And it's off limits, but they assured me that backstage there's a little room where people have signed. I wish we could see it. I wish I could take the camera back there and show you, but sadly, I can't. Now, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. This is kind of a dream. Technically not live when you're watching this, but Grimm Life Collective live from the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood, California. Thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.